5:30 on August the 15th, which is the advertised time and date for this meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment to take place. So I'll now call the meeting to order. I'd like to first of all introduce the staff. The lady sitting in front of the computer monitor is Joella Thomas, and on Joella's right is Aidan Dennehy, and directly across from Aidan is Ella Prigge, and I went to school with her grandpa. So the planning, Josh Edeke, he's down there recording everything for us. So on my right is Stephen Coe. On my far left is Garrett Craig. Next to Garrett, between Garrett and John, is Shanna Adams, and John Reese is on my immediate left. And we have a quorum tonight, and my name is Dave Wing, and we will be deciding the variance applications, whatever they may come before us tonight. So with regard to the first application, do you have a report for us, Joella?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do.
Pardon? I believe the applicant is here. Is the applicant here for, I thought that was her in the back there. Okay, so I did get that one right. Haven't made a mistake so far tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first variance we have here is for variance application 24-8, and it's pertaining to 2318 Argyle. The proposal for this application is a request to vary from section 171020, permitted uses of the Butte-Silver Municipal Code, to allow the creation of a non-conforming parcel with a detached garage without a primary residence. The applicant is proposing to relocate the property line between lot 31 and lots 32 and 33 at 1727 Farragut. Here at the bottom is lot 31. Lot 32 is below the yellow line, and lot 33 is above the red line. The property has two pre-existing garages without primary structures. The applicant is proposing a boundary relocation to incorporate one of the garages into the parcel at 1727 Farragut, and the boundary relocation would result in an accessory structure without a primary residence on lot 32A. The applicant also owns a property addressed as 2318 Argyle, which is right here, located to the northeast and across the alley from lot 33A, and would like to sell the property along with the detached garage located on lot 33A, resulting from the boundary relocation. Butte-Silver Municipal Code section 1754-60 grants powers to the Board of Adjustments to grant variances in instances where all review criteria are met. And the three review criteria will be presented here in the staff report. The zoning designation for these properties is all in the R1 or single family residential. Here's an aerial view of the property. 2318 is up here to the north. The garage that would be associated with that is directly to the southwest. And 1727 Farragut is here and would be affiliated with this garage directly behind it to the northwest. Here's a site plan of the proposal. Again, 2318 is here. This would be the existing garage that would be the accessory structure without a primary on an individual lot. Here's some views looking east at the two garages, and there's the property on Argyle. And then here's a view looking south. You've got the property here on Farragut with, again, the two garages. The boundary relocation line is identified here. They would like to move the boundary to the north, allowing for the garage that would be affiliated with 1727 Farragut to meet the side yard setbacks required in the R1 zoning area. The first criteria is a variance must not be contrary to the public interest. The zoning ordinance safeguards public interest by preventing building congestion, creating uniformity within different zoning districts, and preventing uses of land that may be incompatible with or have a negative impact on surrounding property owners. The R1 zone is intended to accommodate single-family development while providing protection to property owners in the zone. In the R1 zone, accessory structures are permitted so long as there is a primary structure to mitigate potential for nuisances. Accessory buildings without a primary structure have the potential to suffer from little or no maintenance, ultimately becoming a nuisance to the neighborhood. The applicant's proposal achieves two goals that are in the interest of the public. The boundary relocation will make the property located at 1727 Farragut more conforming by ensuring one of the two garages is associated with a primary residence. And the second proposal conveying the second garage with the residence located at 2318 Argyle. Alone, the second garage would create a non-conforming accessory structure without a primary residence. However, this proposal indicates the property owner intends to sell the accessory structure with the property at 2318 Argyle. The proposal would not be contrary to public interest, as the conveyance of the detached accessory structure would be conveyed with a primary residence located at 2318 Argyle. The accessory structure is existing, therefore it wouldn't change the character or be impactful on the surrounding area. The second criteria of the variance, a literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance must result in unnecessary hardship owing to conditions unique to the property. The property in question does not have any unique geological or topographical conditions that would result in an unnecessary hardship. However, the pre-existing garages do not have non-conforming configurations that result in difficulty for use or sale of the accessory structure. The applicants state their fact of hardships are both garages are existing and no new construction would take place. The north wall of the southern garage is right on the property line at this time. The non-conforming status of the two garages without a primary residence is due to the construction of the accessory structures prior to zoning and does not pose a hardship. The proposed boundary relocation brings the garage on lot 32A more into conformity with the primary structure at 1727 Farragut. And the proposal to incorporate lot 33A with 2318 Argyle would also bring the non-conforming parcel more into conformity and relieves the applicant of potential challenges to sell or use the accessory structure on lot 33A in the future. And the third and final criteria for the variance, the spirit of the zoning ordinance must be observed and substantial justice done. Literal interpretation of the code would not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other tracts in the same zoning district. In this case, BSBMC section 174840 states that where a lawful structure exists at the effective date of the adoption of or amendment of the ordinance, an existing non-conforming building may be continued so long as it remains lawful. There are unique conditions related to the property which make compliance with the regulations unfairly difficult. The detached accessory structure is pre-existing, and the applicant is asking to make one property more conforming while asking for an accessory structure to be on a parcel with no primary structure, but to be sold with a primary structure that is across the alley. Given that the accessory structure is already existing and no changes will be made except adjustment to the boundary line to make another structure more conforming, approving this variance would not be granting special privileges denied to others in the same zoning district. Therefore, it is within the spirit of the zoning ordinance to allow a pre-existing residential accessory structure to be located on a parcel with a primary structure. The purpose, use, and scale will not change from the existing use. In order to protect the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the applicants must be willing and able to satisfy the recommended conditions. In conclusion, the conclusion and recommendations, all three of the criteria have been met. The recommendation from the planning staff would be to approve the variance application based on written findings of facts as described in the staff report. And alternatives would be to deny the application based on findings of compliance with the criteria, or continue public hearings on the application with specific directions to staff or the applicant to supply additional information or to address specific terms. And then, of course, the conditions of approval for this particular application, staff felt that the applicant shall file at the Butte-Silver Bow Clerk and Recorder's Office a revised deed containing a deed restriction that requires both parcels and their respective structures to be sold together. So require that the lot with the accessory structure be conveyed with the property at 2318 Argyle. And the second, there shall at no time and for no reason be outside storage of vehicles and or campers not owned by the applicant or have vehicle parts, machinery, equipment, construction materials, or any other debris on the property surrounding the garages, and at no time and for no reason will the garages be used for commercial purposes. That's everything.
Thank you, Joella. Do any members of the staff have any questions or the board have any questions of the staff? Okay. Could the applicant please come forward? There's it right over there. You got to turn on the, Joella can help you there. Could you provide your name for the record, please?
Kristen St. Pierre Robinson.
Okay. And do you have any additional information that you'd like to supply regarding your application?
Not at this time.
Okay. Everything was taken care of to your satisfaction?
I believe so, yes. Everything's been going very smoothly.
Okay. With regard to the conditions of approval, are those acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody present that would care to speak in support of this application? I'm asking if anybody else might want to speak in support of the application. And it looks like we do have somebody who'd like to talk. I've heard him talk before.
Hi, I'm Leo McCarthy. I'm representing Tim Rademacher.
Okay.
He couldn't make it tonight, but I mean, we're all in support of the variance and the setup of the boundaries.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Leo.
You bet. Good to see you, Dave.
Good to see you. Is there anybody else who would care to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody present that would care to speak against the application? Hearing nobody, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion. Any thoughts from board members regarding this? Seems to be pretty straightforward to me.
Mr. Chair, I agree. It seems pretty straightforward. It looks like it's more cleaning up some past practices than anything else, so I'm
Yeah.
in support of this.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that should get done. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts?
I would agree as well, Mr. Chairman. And I think the conditions of approval the board laid out are good as well.
I agree. Well, does anybody care to make a motion regarding this matter?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request 24-8.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, with the conditions as outlined.
With the
here.
conditions as outlined.
I accept that.
all 5 votes are for the motion, which means that your application has been approved, and you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. So thank you and good luck. Bye, Leo. Good to see you. The next matter on our agenda is variance application 24-9. It's actually 2 variance applications, one pertaining to Harrison Avenue and one pertaining to Mount Highland Drive, but it's the same property. The hearing will go the same with regard to both of them. And are you the representative tonight? Okay, thank you, sir. And you're going to do it, Aiden?
I am, yes.
All right.
All right. This first presentation will be concerning the proposal for the Harrison Avenue location. So this is for variance application 24-9. The applicant is the Burt Mooney Airport Authority, located at 101 Airport Road in Butte, Montana. To summarize the project, the applicants are proposing to locate 2 off-premise billboard signs in a single-family suburban residential zone. A majority of the almost 480 acres of airport property is zoned as R1S. Directly west of this proposed location is the beginning boundary of a community commercial or C2 zone. The applicants would be varying from Butte-Silver Municipal Code Section 17.42.060, which prohibits off-premise signs in all residential zoning districts. This is a zoning designation map of the proposed area. You can see in the R1S, that is where the airport is located. Directly across Harrison is where that commercial zone begins in the C2. This is another aerial view where the stars are, the red stars, that's the proposed locations of the signs. So they'd be along the Harrison Avenue frontage across from other commercial use properties, including fitness courts and the Copper King Hotel. So criteria 1, a variance must not be contrary to public interest. Due to the absence of nearby residences and the predominantly commercial nature of the surrounded land uses, the proposed billboard locations along Harrison Avenue would not be contrary to the public interest. Criteria 2, literal enforcement of the provisions of the title will result in an unnecessary hardship. So there's no existing geographical, geological, topographical, or cadastral conditions that would result in an unnecessary hardship. However, the airport was an established commercial use prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. So since the airport, being that it's a pre-existing legal non-conforming use in a residential zone, that does present a hardship. Criteria 3, the spirit of the zoning ordinance shall be observed and substantial justice be done. Literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter would not deprive the applicants of rights commonly enjoyed by other tracts in the same district. Given the legal, non-conforming nature of the property, approving this variance would not be granting special privilege to others in the same zoning district. These circumstances are not comparable to that typical of an R1S zone. Given the above criteria, the variance request to locate 2 commercial use signs in an R1S zone whose construction predates the adoption of the ordinance is appropriate. We do have a recommended condition of approval for these ones. That would just be that the development of the 2 signs along Harrison Avenue shall comply with the C2 zoning district sign regulations. In conclusion and recommendation, we see that it meets 3 of 3 criteria. We recommend approval based off written findings and fact established in our staff report. You can alternatively deny the application based on findings of compliance with criteria, or continue public hearing on the application with specific direction to staff or the applicant to supply additional information or address specific items. And that's the conclusion of this presentation.
Okay. Will we contemplate doing both reports on both Mount Highland and Harrison, or do it separately?
We have 2 separate PowerPoints. I don't know if you guys want to
Okay.
listen to them both first, or if you. We also have separate ballots
Yeah, we do have separate
for the
ballots,
2.
yeah. Okay. We might as well do the second one, I believe, or what do you think about that? I'm open.
Yep. I will
Okay.
get the second
Go a
one
little
up.
quicker and you can go down to Music on Main.
All right, so this is for the second proposed location along Mount Highland Drive. So the second part of the same variance. Same applicant, same location. To summarize this part of the project, the applicants are requesting to locate 2 off-premise billboard signs in a single-family suburban residential zone. A majority of their own acreage is in an R1S property. The proposed location for this one is surrounded by residential zones. The applicants would again be varying from the same section, 17.42.060, that prohibits off-premise signs in residential zoning districts. Here's a zoning district map of the proposed locations. You can see the R1S is where the airport property is, and then it also includes an R1 zoning district. The signs would be placed near the border of that R1 zoning district, and we'll see on this slide, you can see the 2 stars kind of in the upper right corner. That represents where the signs would be located along the Mount Highland Drive frontage bordering the R1 zone. Here's another view, kind of in this red rectangle would be where the signs would be located. Across the street is a residential zone. So this will all have the same criteria. For our first one, must not be contrary to public interest. Commercial scale advertising aspects are not permitted in residential zoning districts in order to uphold what is reasonably expected of a residential neighborhood and prevent commercialization. Due to the nature of the surrounding land uses as predominantly residential, the proposed signs have the potential to be contrary to public interest and may impose negative impacts on future residential developments within the immediate area. Criteria 2, literal enforcement of the provisions of this title will result in an unnecessary hardship. Due to the amount of acreage owned by the airport, it borders various zones, including both commercial and residential zones. This in turn requires different enforcement perspectives throughout the entirety of the property. In a commercial zone, which is located to the west of the airport property, it is reasonably expected to see billboards, roadside advertisements, artificial lighting, and increased traffic. In a residential zone located to the north and east of the airport property, a property owner can reasonably expect that their neighborhood remain free of these before mentioned items due to the potential of obstructed views, noise pollution, and the increase of visual commercialized advertisements. This area of the airport property is located in a residentially zoned area and is not an appropriate location for a billboard. Criteria 3, the spirit of the zoning ordinance shall be observed and substantial justice be done. Though the Burt Mooney Airport is a legal, non-conforming use in the R1S zoning district, more commercial in nature, it is not permitted to expand nonconformity. While it might be acceptable to include this proposed type of sign along Harrison Avenue, a predominantly commercial area, it is not within the spirit of the ordinance to have off-premise signs in a residential zoning district. Due to the close proximity of the R1 zone, the request for variance is not appropriate. 0 of 3 criteria met. We recommend denial for the variance application based off our findings. You can alternatively approve the application based off findings of compliance with the criteria, or continue public hearing on the application with specific direction to staff or the applicant to supply additional information. And that is the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Aidan.
Yeah.
Do any board members have any questions of the staff with regard to this application? Is John? Sure.
These are going to be actually big advertising billboards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Reese. Yes, so these would be similar in nature to the billboards that are out on the airport property now. If you've driven out there recently, I believe they were, do you remember what the size was? I don't remember off the top of my head what the size of the previous ones that were approved on Harrison were, but they would be about the same size. I want to say they're like 5 feet by 6 feet or something, maybe a 30-foot area.
So these are elevated billboards like you would see along the highway.
Correct.
Okay.
Maybe we
Thank
can
you.
get that information from the applicant.
Okay.
Any other comments or thoughts or questions to the
I have one,
planning
Mr.
staff?
Chairman.
Yes, Stephen?
Do you know what that area is identified in the comp plan as? What the place setting is?
I'm not sure if I have that information right now, but I could look it up if that would be helpful.
No worries. I'll have another question after the applicant
Okay.
presents.
Okay. Any other questions? Could the applicant please come forward, and if you could, appreciate it if you could identify yourself for the record.
For the record, my name is Rick Ryan, R-Y-A-N, and I'm the assistant manager at the Burt Mooney Airport at 101 Airport Road.
Okay. And you've been present for the presentations by the staff?
Yes, for actually both. About a year ago, we were here for the same thing.
Okay, yeah, I do remember you from then.
Yeah.
So we, recommendation, approve the Harrison Avenue billboards and deny the Mount Highland Drive billboards. Do you have any thoughts with regard to that recommendation?
Well, we'd sure like to have the recommendation for the Mount Highland ones for sure. So we've been approached by a separate sign company from last year. We had the zoning, I know a couple of you are surprised that the airport was zoned R1 since 1977, and a year later we're still kind of going through the process. So we're hoping for a variance change and a zoning change and get that all corrected here hopefully soon. To give a background on the Mount Highland property, if she could pull up the map, the original sign company had an application. They wanted to do lease ground for 6 billboards out at the airport. 4 of them, or 2 of them were up on Elizabeth Warren on the north end of the runway, 2 over here off of Mount Highland, and 2 on Harrison Avenue. So whenever we do a billboard project on the property, all of that stuff has to be approved by the FAA. So this company went through the process. The airport went through all the applications for an FAA review The two signs that are located, that their proposed location on the north end of the runway we're in our runway protection zone, which is a conical shape that projects over to the Bartoletti property on the north side of Elizabeth Warren. Those areas were deemed FAA would not allow it. So they dropped that proposal for those two billboard locations, and we still wanted these two. As you well know, Mount Highland Drive is pretty much anymore a commercial thoroughfare through Butte. There's a lot of truck traffic that goes through there. They did traffic studies. Obviously, you're aware, there's a lot of commercial buildings along that thoroughfare, starting at Three Bears at the intersection. The Harley-Davidson store's commercial. As you make the round, you've got an LDS church. You've got an assisted living facility across the street next to our property is a self-storage unit. Next to that is the new surgery center off Elizabeth Warren in Mount Highland. So there are some commercial properties along that. I will add that these two signs here will be the only two billboards that will be allowed on that edge of the property. You're not going to see a whole corner of billboards down there due to the FAA and the runway protection zone and the review of that area. So that's why it's kind of off to the east of that wetlands down there, I guess you'd call it, the creek that runs through the bottom. That would be the only two billboards you would see on that end of the property. You will not see any more along that thoroughfare and over across Mount Highland anywhere on the airport. So that would be the only two locations down there, I might add.
Okay.
Yeah.
With regard to the two billboards on Mount Highland Drive, what is directly across the street from each of them?
Actually, it's an open vacant property right now, as you can see. It is zoned R1, but I Google searched it today. The residence off of Victoria Lane up there is just about 500 feet from the sign at by the church, and then the residential properties up there are about 800 feet according to Google Maps. So there is quite a bit of a distance, a buffer zone, but along that thoroughfare, you know, it's been vacant ever since I was born, but you know, development could happen tomorrow. So, but you know, our sign company is willing to work. If lighting was an issue, they will work with Butte-Silver Bow to eliminate any lighting issues or glare issues, any of that. They're more than willing to work with us and you guys or the Butte-Silver Bow to address any of those issues.
Okay. A question was asked earlier with regard to the size of the signs.
The size of the signs will be, these ones will be a little bit smaller than the ones on Harrison Avenue.
Okay.
We do meet all the C2 conformity issues that are across the street and all up and down that corridor of Harrison Avenue. And they are limited at, I believe it's 20 feet tall, and the square footage is like 600, I think, like 30 by, I can't remember exactly what they are, but the sign company is definitely will conform to all those regulations. It'd be the same ones.
Okay. There's a couple of billboards that appear to me to be on airport property right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the size of those signs? Do you have any idea?
I'd have to go back and look at last year's zoning, because we had to come up and get a
Sure.
zoning application for those.
Okay,
And
that's
what we did on that one about a year ago was we owned property down north of Butte Auto, and that was sold to a developer. We had two signs that were leased on that property. They relocated those further south on Harrison in front of the airport entrance, and I guess we call them the South T hangars. Yeah, so they just relocated them from like the lot next to Butte GM further south on Harrison Avenue.
Okay.
Yep.
Has anybody complained about your plan to put billboards up?
We
Especially
have
with
not heard
regard to
any.
the one on Mount Highland Drive?
Yeah,
the two?
we have not been contacted by anybody.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I'll see if other board members have
You know,
questions.
it's one of those things with the zoning process we have now. I'm starting to get a lot of interest from general aviation people wanting to relocate to Butte and build hangars and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they see that zoning as an R1 issue. And the question to me is like, can we build a hangar at the airport that's zoned R1, a residential area? And I'm like, well, we have a condition, whatever you call that, special use thing prior to consolidation and stuff that, yeah, we build hangars out there. But that's one of the as a developer and contractors, that's the very first thing they look at, and they're like, oh, wait a minute here, what's going on with your airport? So hopefully we're gonna get that fixed and get the correct zoning and stuff where, you know, if it were a C2, I'm assuming we wouldn't have to be up here doing a zoning variance, correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other board members, any of the other board members have any questions of Mr. Ryan?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one. How close is that billboard to the church?
It's probably, I'll have to look at the exact site plan, John. It's, we have a security gate. You can see the access road kind of runs right up that way. It's going to be further away from the church because we have to leave that open for access for fire department, emergency services, plows, all that kind of stuff. I'd have to Google, but I'm going to guess from the actual church site, you're probably looking at probably a couple hundred feet.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Coe's question. Were you guys able to pull up the comp plan? I think that's, in my mind, the question for this Mount Highland area is, has the community kind of decided whether they want this to be a commercial thoroughfare or a residential area going forward?
So, Mr. Chairman, Shanna, yes, we were able to finally pull that up. Sorry about that. That in the comprehensive plan is located in the economic driver place type, which is an area intended to support larger scale employment opportunities as well as institutional uses such as schools, campuses, healthcare facilities, transportation hubs, including airports or bus depots and conference centers. These areas are unique and may take different forms based upon the specific use and intensity planned. So that's coming directly from our comprehensive plan.
Okay. Any further questions based upon what Joella just told us? Okay. Any further questions at all? Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Although I know the answer to this one, I'll ask if there's anybody present who would care to speak in support of this application. Hearing nobody, I'll ask if there's anybody present that would care to speak against the application. And again, I hear nobody, so I'll open up this matter for board discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Steve.
So speaking from my own experience, having done some work recently on the airport property and permitting, the fact that it is an R1 zone currently adds another layer of regulation that you have to go through to approve things and get stuff approved. So it does make it difficult. And the fact that it's been identified in the comp plan, the growth policy, you know, as an economic driver, which is attuned to a C1 or C2 zone, I don't actually see an issue with either of these.
I don't either. Just wonder how it ever came to be that the airport is R1.
That's a great question. I was shocked.
Yeah. Any other comments, thoughts with regard to these applications?
And I guess it was alluded to, but is there a process ongoing to rezone the airport?
So we are in the process of updating our zoning ordinance. And this is one of the areas that will be looked at since it is zoned as a residential suburban. I'm guessing that it will be a zone that will be changed, and it'll be, what we're looking at doing is making it more compatible with our comprehensive plan. So it'll be more in conformance with what the comprehensive plan is stating for the zoning districts that we have now.
So that's in process, huh? Okay.
Yes, that's been in process for about 18 months.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions regarding this particular matter? Anything further you'd like Mr. Ryan to address? Okay. I'm in support of what I understood Stephen to say. I don't see any problems with either the Mount Highland variance application or the Harrison Avenue variance application. This has been a thoroughfare for a long time, and in fact, I drive it myself. I don't think I'd noticed the billboards, maybe I would. But I would support both applications. Does anybody care to make a motion?
Just a question for point of order.
Oh, sure.
Can this be done in one motion, or is this two separate motions?
I think it'd be two, but I'll defer to Joella and Aiden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we did do two ballots. We did put it under one variance application, but we did two ballots just so we could distinguish between the two areas, just in case there was a difference. So if you don't mind doing the ballots separately, that would be great.
In that case, I'll make at least the first motion to approve variance 24-9 for Harrison Avenue signs.
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. All five votes are in support of the motion that would approve the application for Harrison Avenue. So you'll be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect with regard to Harrison Avenue. Now with regard to Mount Highland Drive.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one more question for Joella. Knowing the length of time that it takes to revamp the ordinances and change the zoning ordinance, that has to go to the council for approval even after you revamp everything or change everything. Could that be another 18 months down the road?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, John. Yes, so we are in the process of updating the ordinance. Once the final draft has been completed, it will go to the council. It'll go through the planning board and then through the council to be approved. And then after that, once it's been approved, then we would go through and redo the mapping, which would be the zone designations on the map. But until that point, yeah, I mean, potentially it could be 18 months, but we're hoping not. So it's just a long process, but we're hoping that within the next, the beginning of 2025, it will be adopted in the first few months of 2025. And then we can proceed to changing the mapping.
All right, thank you, Joe.
So does anybody care to make a motion with regard to the separate Mount Highland Drive variance application?
I move that we approve variance 24-9 for the Mount Highland Drive.
Okay, thank you, John. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Thank you, John. All five votes are for the motion to approve the variance application for the Mount Highland Drive area. So you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. And good luck. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Is there any further business?
Mr. Chairman, no, that's everything for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joella.